Welcome to another episode of the Coffee Conversation Show powered by the Emerging India Forum, TIF, and our tech partner, Prime Infotech Solution. Series is The Emerging Lawyer. Theme is Navigating Tech and Fintech Law, the Tech Lawyer's Playbook. So we have with us guest speaker Vishy Vincent, Associate Director Legal at Wibmo, part of the PayU, Prosus and Naspers Group. Vishy has a decade experience spanning multiple industries, including technology, fintech, and media. He has carved a niche in the complex world of legal compliance, strategic advisory, and corporate law. From his early days at Ola to his current role at Wibmo, Vishy's career is a testament to adaptability, foresight, and legal acumen in a rapidly evolving digital landscape. So, friends, this will be a lovely conversation having with Vishy in Tech Lawyers Playbook format. So, welcome, Vishy, to today's Coffee Conversation episode.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amir. I mean, that was a lovely introduction. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, the title is also so, what do you say? Uh, my team has done a lovely job on this, making this title. So I'll remember this, and you will also remember the
Yeah,
Tech Lawyers Playbook.
absolutely.
So
I look forward to this. I mean, I'll try and share as many insights as I can. I mean, I'll try.
thank you. So, friends, I'm Lain Amir Virani, host of Coffee Conversation and a legal tech evangelist and author of 15 ebooks. So, Vishy, the format, there are 3 rounds, professional, personal, and the fun rapid fire round, for which in the rapid fire, if you answer those questions witty, funny, and quickly, you get to win this book.
Oh, all right. Perfect.
So, yeah, it will be autographed and sent to you, your book. Yeah.
Look forward.
So, let's begin. My first question for your professional journey, Vishy, your journey has been into multiple sectors like technology, fintech, and media. What has been the most challenging industry in your journey, which you have been able to navigate, and why?
Oh, I mean, before I answer your question, I mean, I just want to clarify something, right? I mean, I look at myself as a tech lawyer. I mean, I wouldn't say that I've been involved with media work or finance work directly, right? This is the age of the internet intermediary, right? I mean, the middleman makes, does the business, right? I mean, he connects the right guys to the right guys and, you know, middlemen with the technology. So I've been a part of organizations that had the technology and that did great work, revolutionized the way we live today, right? I mean, I started my career with Ola, my in-house career with a company called Ola, which is essentially a tech company that connects commuters to transport service providers and vice versa. Now, if I look at InMobi, again, a similar organization, which is an internet intermediary, which is connecting ad service providers, or basically somebody wants to put up ads to applications that allow those ads to be put up. So that's again intermediary work connecting two parties together. All of these companies identify as tech companies, right? They're not really transport companies, they're not really media companies. So I, being a part of these organizations, would like to identify myself as a tech lawyer and not, somebody who's had that direct experience with media or finance. Of course, I mean, when you interface with these industries, I mean, as a tech lawyer, there's a lot of learning that happens, right? I mean, it's not like you can live in isolation, completely ignore that bit. It doesn't happen that way. I mean, you're exposed to media law, you're exposed to, financial regulations, you're exposed to transport laws. All of these things come into the play for sure. Answering our question, which is the toughest industry? Oh, hard to say, right? I mean, if you look at it, when I was at Ola, I mean this is my uh, these are my formative years, initial years in the profession, and we are. I myself, as a lawyer, had a greater risk appetite, right? And the industry was, uh, it was an absolutely new service, right? Ola was not something that existed. I mean, the kind of service that Ola offered was not something that existed prior to that. So the company was trying something new. We as lawyers were enabling something new. So our risk appetite was much greater. The regulations were much, they didn't really exist. I mean, because the services didn't exist, the regulations hadn't really caught up. Oh, so we were trying to, I mean, come up with, you know, how do I put this? I mean, we were very experimental in our approach. And then the law would catch up with us and tell us this is what needs to be tweaked, changed. So that had its own set of challenges. I mean, we were never on the wrong side of law, but the law never existed, so we were figuring things out. So that had its own set of challenges. So that's transport tech for you. Media again has its own challenges because it's very subjective. I did a lot of content work, right? I mean, what kind of ads would be okay in what country, what which countries would be okay with a certain kind of ad, and which countries wouldn't be. And that's very very subjective, right? I mean, it's just you trying to uh, think from the perspective of somebody in a foreign land and thinking, okay, does this uh, sound okay? Does this feel okay for somebody who would be a part of that country? Or that kind of a subjectivity existed. That would make media very very challenging. But simply by the sheer volume of regulations that exist, financial tech, this space is definitely the toughest in terms of figuring things out because the regulations exist. It's not uh, I mean, it's not the law catching up. It does still catch up with some of the new things that come up in the space, but the RBI, the NPCI are probably one of the top regulators when it comes to the space across the world, right? I mean, nobody does as great a job as probably the RBI and the NPCI and all these regulators that we have in the industry. So financial tech definitely, in terms of the volume of regulations, it's tough to figure out what to look at where, and that makes it challenging. But I wouldn't rank it in that order. I mean, each of these industries had their own set of challenges. I mean, and different kind of challenges.
So now let's continue the conversation, Vishy. How does a day look like for an associate director at Wibmo?
Oh, challenging. It is pretty hectic. But I guess that's the life of a lawyer, right? I mean, you've signed up for this. Our role is to take, you know, absorb the stress that exists in the organization. Take up all the worries that other guys are edgy about. Thinking about how things would work out. You step in, you absorb the stresses that exist, and then you go back to them and give them a resolution. So it is a stressful job, no doubt. How does a day look like? I mean, yeah, problem solving. I mean, firefighting all the time, right? I mean, that's the role. I mean, I enjoy that. I mean, I look at that as some sort of a superpower. I mean, we all, I've created this imaginary world in my head where I feel like, I'm the superhero sort of solving problems for this city, that company that I am a part of, right? So that's sort of an approach. I mean, I'm fighting, and, trying to protect the
Okay.
company. So that's the approach for sure.
So you like the Batman of,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Batman of Wibmo.
Batman of Wibmo, right? So that's the approach.
Nice one as well. Batman of Wibmo. You should uh, put something of Batman's what do you say, caricature on your desk.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we'll
absolutely. Probably
from
I'll
our
take this
conversation.
message to HR. I mean, call me that from now.
Okay. So now, Vishy, how do you balance the legal compliance and privacy functions within such a dynamic and evolving tech landscape, especially at Web and other organizations?
Uh, See, I mean, I'll put it very honestly that my focus is more on the legal side of things, not as much on the compliance and privacy side of things. In terms of the time split, right? If I have to split it in 100, I mean, probably 50 to 60% of the time is spent on legal matters, and the remaining is then split between compliance and privacy. The reason I'm able to do that is because I have a very strong global team with very good compliance and privacy functions, right? I mean, they back me up a lot. I mean, there is a lot of support that I get from these teams. One of the advantages of working with a global conglomerate is, you have these people all around the world who've got, different kinds of experiences. And, the good thing about PayU or Wibmo as an organization is the fact that, uh, I mean, it's not, when we all connect, it's not done in a way where it is a regime sort of a thing that you have to do a legal all hands, every day, every week, or everything, anything of that sort, right? I mean, we connect from time to time just to share our experiences, and we do it uh, with the love for the exercise, right? It's not a forced exercise. So when we meet, we connect, we speak about our different experiences. Some guy from Poland, tells us that this happened. And then triggers something in our minds. Hey, it's possible in India as well. That's a very interesting thing that happened there. Have we thought about this for India? How do we cover ourselves? So compliance and privacy kind of gets easier to manage because of the existence of these other teams. Their shared experiences really help me out. The more focus area is definitely the legal side of things. And like I said, right, I mean, RBI, honestly, Wibmo is not really a directly regulated entity. It provides services to entities that are regulated. So even though these regulations don't directly apply to us, because our clients are regulated, we need to be fully aware of what applies to them. What is it that they need to take care of, so that we can step in and tell them that, hey, don't worry, we are aware, we'll take care of this.
Wow. Okay. Now let's go to your role at InMobi, managing legal compliances for the EMA and APAC region. How was the experience dealing with different markets?
Fantastic, an absolute joyride. I mean, and so much of learning. I mean, uh, see, what happens is when you do domestic negotiations, I mean, when I say domestic negotiations, essentially when two counterparties are from the same country and they negotiate, uh, and it's not specific to India. I mean, uh, I'm not sure if I should say this out loud, but I mean, it's been my experience, and probably I'll share that, right? I mean, it's not specific to India. Uh, uh, the legal profession is slightly, an ego-inflated profession, right? I mean, it's about validating your opinions, making ensuring you feel good about your work at the end of the day, and everybody wants to do that at the cost of others, right? And that's how typically it works out. I mean, it's a conflict oriented job, right? You're fighting with somebody else on the other side who's trying to get something. You're trying to get something for your company. I'm not saying people are inherently bad. That's not what I mean. It's just the nature of the job where you are in a conflict situation all the time, and winning matters, and making yourself feel better matters. uh, and sometimes during negotiations that happen within the same country, and it's not something that is specific to India. Let me call that out very clearly, because I follow a lot of lawyers across the world. I know that sometimes egos come into negotiations. People just throw in a small reference that I've been doing this for the last 20 years, right? So what that does is it's a subtle message to the other side that, hey, I have more experience, just accept the terms that I'm sharing with you. That sort of a thing goes away when you're doing, or when you're part of a transaction where there are two companies from different countries. Somehow the reputation aspect of it, the ego aspect of it goes away, right? We are all speaking on the merit of things. There are no external factors. We are all trying to reason things out. So that's been my observation. I mean, people could have different experiences. I'm just sharing mine. That, I mean, international negotiations are definitely a different experience compared to when you do a local negotiation with a local counterpart. And not just for India. I'm not saying this is a problem with Indian lawyers. It's a general thing all across the world. Because the circle, the legal circle is so small. That's why all those things happen. That's the difference when you look at how international negotiations work out and domestic negotiations work out. Beyond that, I've also learned a few things. There are regions. I mean, I wouldn't want to call that out, but there are regions in the world where we are more open to reasoned negotiations, and there are regions in the world where we are not, right? I mean, so that sort of a difference also exists. You need to, and I don't know, call these countries out, or say that this happens there, or I mean, it's just a general thing. It's a cultural thing, right? Different countries have different ways of negotiating, reasoning things out. Some people are more receptive to reason, some people are not. You'll have to figure that out while you're at it, right? I mean, it's an on-the-job learning thing. I mean, you negotiate a few times with a few countries, you realize, hey, this is a standard pattern here. You do it somewhere else, you realize this is the pattern, right? So that again comes across very clearly. That's a learning, right? And you also learn the fact that there are certain nations that are better at this than you, right? There are certain things that you can pick from them, and I'll probably call that out. So um, I've how do I put this? I mean, again, there are times you pick and choose your battles one, and then you use a little bit of flattery, right? That is also something that I've learned, that certain nations have figured out that, hey, this works in this country, that country, right? I mean, you just let something go which is not really of value, right? Something that is inconsequential for the bigger prize that exists, right? And then you say a word or two of praise, and say it out loud in that group. The other council is just blown away, right? He's happy. He's, just thinking about the praise. It happened in front of his colleagues. That works out well. Some places just use that to their advantage, very well. And that's something that I've learned. I mean, you need to navigate, figure out how do people respond to interpersonal stuff like that. When you negotiate with different countries, if that works, why not make the most of it, right? I mean, that's something that I've tried to incorporate into my negotiation style as well. That's something that I really enjoy. Negotiations are my favorite part of the day. So I try and pick and learn different things from different lawyers. What are they doing? What are they thinking? How are these interpersonal things making a difference? Sometimes it goes over and above, what is in the contract. It's not about law alone. You just try and figure out the person and negotiate. So that yes, when you negotiate internationally, all of these things, you notice and you learn. Yeah.
That's interesting. Interpersonal. I was just reflecting. I've seen a couple of movies of hostage and how the hostage negotiator from from the police or from the government side does. So your role is similar to that. Just what do you say, in a lighter way of just putting it across.
Yeah, I mean, I see. Uh, I mean, you look at the process. What is it? I mean, before you enter a negotiate, you enter the negotiation table. You sit at a negotiation table. You've got it figured out in your head, right? I mean, these are the three things for my company. These are the things that I can't. I mean, it's okay. I can let go of, right? So you know your positions very well. Very similar to a hostage negotiation, where I mean, I need this guy to release the hostages, right? So you kind of know what your uh, best outcome would be, and then you maneuver, manipulate around, and figure things out in that process.
Good, good. So now coming to your Ola time, you were involved in structuring various business products. How did the experience influence your current role vis-a-vis the legal strategy?
Oh, again, I mean, absolutely very, very grateful for that part of my career. I mean, that made my career, is what I'd say. I mean, the biggest learning, the biggest learning uh, came from Ola, right? And because we were, trying to experiment with things that were not known then, with ideas that were not applied earlier, right? It was all brand new, absolutely new. Uh, the laws didn't exist, right? So we were trying to figure things out. I didn't really have a lot of experience, right? So if you look at my time at Ola, this is probably the first few years of my professional experience. Uh, and at a time like that, if your seniors are giving you that confidence that, hey, step into the chaos and figure things out on your own. I mean, there's nothing that can beat that kind of an experience, right? I mean, it's all chaotic. You're standing there looking at things and wondering, how? What do I do here, right? And when you figure that out, that's your learning. That is a lifetime's learning. I mean, in fact, when people ask about generally, I mean, if there are juniors in the profession, they want advice in terms of what kind of roles to pick up. I strongly feel that when you are part of a startup or you're part of an ecosystem that is not as organized and set up and is not as mature, you tend to learn more, right? I mean, if you're part of a mature setup, I mean, everything's already streamlined, your roles are limited. When you're not part of a mature organization, and when I say this, I mean, I'm talking about when Ola started off, right? This is the initial few years. I'm not by any means saying that it's not a mature organization currently, but yes, I mean, when we started off, we were all experimenting with a lot of things. Um, yeah, I mean, so when you're part of a setup that allows you the chance to really step into the chaos and figure things out, there's nothing that beats that kind of an experience. Uh, I mean, I mean, I'll probably use some legal examples because the audience is of that kind, right? I mean, say something like, so today there are BNPL regulations, right? Buy now, pay later. All of these things have become very common. You buy products, you buy services, pay for it later. Back then, right? I mean, we this is around the time Paytm was really booming. 2016, we just made the transition to online payments. We wanted our payment instrument, Ola Money, to grow equally as well. At that point of time, we figured out a way that, hey, let's do the cab rides on credit. Let the people make the payments via the instrument. BNPL is a huge thing now, right? I mean, it's a separate industry in itself. We were doing it 10 years back. No regulations, nothing, right? We figured it out. Let's do this. you know. So when those regulations come up, you look at it and think, hey, this is exactly what we were doing some 10 years back. So this is what has been stopped. This is what is allowed. This is what needs to be altered. So that kind of an experience is a lifetime's worth knowledge, right? So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So how do you approach Vishy contract management and negotiation in global settings with varying legal standards?
I think I already touched upon that, right? I mean, I went into a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, I'm sorry. You have already done. I don't want more in depth. Uh, yes, you have covered.
No, that's
Uh,
okay. I'll probably just say
no,
that,
no, no. I'll ask you something else. Yeah, because there's so many questions are there, so I'm just have to again and look at which questions I have covered and which
should I keep my answers
go
brief?
to
I mean,
next. Yeah, okay. Given a background in technology law, how do you foresee the role of legal professionals evolving in the next decade vis-a-vis India and globally?
uh, see, not just technology law, right? If you're an in-house counsel, or I mean, I think times have changed. It's not just about in-house counsels. Even if you're a law firm associate partner, I mean, whatever your role, right? You need to know the business. I mean, the knowledge of law alone is good, but that's not enough. It makes you become a complete lawyer when you know the business in and out, right? You understand uh, the the incentive behind why certain teams are acting in a certain way. I mean, how does it benefit, right? When you learn all of that, when the business aspect of things are clear, um, you become a better lawyer, right? So how I see things transforming is essentially by people learning more about the business they are into, right? Including fintech. Now, fintech is a very uh, loosely used term. It's a very broad term. I mean, what is fintech? I mean, simply financial technology. You could bring in a bunch of things within the definition of fintech, right? But I've created my own definition around this, and I'll probably share this here, right? Uh, Financial technology. Who all can you serve? Who are the uh, participants in this ecosystem, right? First and foremost, you have the sovereign, which is essentially somebody who's giving recognition to uh, the money that's printed, the currency that's out there. Then there are banks that are circulating the money in the market, right? Then there are people who are using that money to buy goods and services. And then there are people who are selling goods and services, which we call merchants, right? So there are merchants, there are end users, there are banks, and there's the sovereign. Now, a fintech would essentially just service these four categories, right? I mean, there's nothing else. I mean, if you're a fintech, you're servicing one of these four in the industry, right? So, if you're looking at merchants, there are a bunch of service providers. There is PayU, there's Razorpay, the payment aggregators, and there are other services that are offered to merchants, right? Which enables them to collect payments and all of that. There are a bunch of things, right? That's one. So you're servicing merchants. There are banks. Now, banks, their expertise or their forte lies in financial services, banking products, banking services. They need somebody to help them out with the tech. So there's a fintech. There are fintechs that exist that tell banks exactly how to keep up with what's happening in the markets and keep up with the technology out there. So there's space for some fintech companies there. End users, I mean, then there is absolutely no limit, right? You can provide any and whole bunch of services to end users. I mean, just simple payments. I mean, there's UPI, there's GPay, there are wallets, there are insurance apps, there are investment apps. All of this would fall within fintech, right? The first one, I mean, the one that we touched earlier on, the sovereign. Uh, can fintech really service the sovereign, the governments? The scope for it is less because the sovereign is usually self-dependent. We have NPCI, which is doing a fantastic job. So I don't see a lot of fintech opportunity there. And And again, this is a personal opinion. I could be wrong about this. I am so. I mean, when you look at cryptocurrency, right? It is essentially a replacement of the first category that we spoke about, the fiat currency by the sovereign. I'm not very optimistic about this, right? So if you ask me about, the industry in general, the other three categories definitely going to grow. A lot of participants going to come in. This is slightly tricky, right? I mean, you can't really, unless something massive changes, something transformational happens, and governments are no longer relevant or something of that sort happens. Uh, you're practically competing with fiat currency, and so the fintech space with the sovereign is kind of not so open, and that's where cryptocurrencies would fall into, right? So I mean, my personal opinion is that that's their biggest challenge. They're competing with the sovereign. May not work out well. I could be completely wrong about this. I mean, I don't know, but these are my thoughts. Yeah.
Wow. So now, Vishy, during your decade-long career, you must have come across several legal complex cases. So from your memory bank, share one, and how did you approach solving it?
Uh, yeah, I mean, it relates to something that I said earlier, right? Knowing the business is very critical. Um, there are two, three things that I'd like to speak about, right? One is a very recent thing, right? When I say recent, it's 21, 22, 2021, 2022. So Wibmo is a company that in that ecosystem offers services to banks and financial institutions. So we are the company that helps banks keep up with the tech that's out there. Uh, the banks outsource their tech functions to us. Uh, and I mean, there's more nuance to it. It's not regular tech. I mean, we help them with authentication, fraud and risk management, that those kind of services. But uh, we are people who help banks and financial institutions. So given that we are a service provider of that kind, you know there are a bunch of new regulations that have just come in, that came out in 2021, 2022, right? There were outsourcing guidelines that just came up and told the banks, hey, listen, if you're outsourcing these aspects of your work to somebody else, just make sure ABCD things are ensured. Now, I mean, you look at it this way, right? I mean, for them to build the tech capability in house is not that tough, right? I mean, it is possible in a country like India, you could build this in house. Why do you have to outsource? But then these regulations came in and actually made life easier for participants like us, because the ask is so much that it'll actually be easier for banks to come to us and make sure we take care of everything, right? So when these regulations came out, we had to study what's happening. Each of these banks, like wanted us to provide whatever was there in the guidelines free of cost, right? They said it's an RBI mandate, you have to do this. We had to navigate that, figure out, hey, we have to do this, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a complimentary service, right? So getting that communication across to our clients, customers, that was a phase that we had. I mean, we were having these interactions with different banks, internally to letting the leadership know, letting the leadership understand that, hey, while we have to comply, it doesn't necessarily mean that we take the hit here, right? I mean, we can provide these services at I mean, for a fee, right? So these kind of understanding issues, I mean, cultural issues, I had to be solved before we actually went into the document part of it. I mean, since I touched cultural issues, I mean, I also talk about the fact that you know uh, when it's a new legal team in an organization, that also is a challenge in itself, right? I mean, because nobody is used to having a legal person or legal personnel taking care of the requirements there, telling you what to do, what not to be done. It's often looked at as a cost center. So that approach shift from a cost center to a value add center is one of the biggest challenges that you'll face in house, right? I mean, it's not law. I think it's the biggest thing. I mean, if you can show yourself as a value add center and not as a cost center, it changes the game for you internally. I mean, yeah, I mean, that is definitely one thing that one should look at.
Wow. Okay. Now, how has been what do you say, regulations from economy and with changes happening in India? So how is it evolving, and where do you think the fintech sector will go in another 5 years?
Oh, in the last 10 years, we've grown by 500%, the fintech sector, right? I mean, it's been massive and it will continue to grow. Um, and I mean, again, picking up from the earlier response, right? I mean, I look at growth happening with merchants, merchant services, with tech services offered to banks and financial institutions and end users. So that's the area where I'm looking at in terms of growth. Unless, like I said, something massively transformational happens and there's some change with the sovereign as well. Uh, yeah, I mean, I was saying the fintech sector has grown by 500% in the last 10 years. It is going to continue to grow. One of the reasons it has grown so much is because and if you notice, I mean, fintech has grown in more in the developing countries or maybe in the underdeveloped countries as compared to the developed countries. One of the reasons for that is, we were not really tied down by regulations. I mean, it was not, there was a way for people to innovate. At the same time, India has been at the head of it, or I mean, has been ahead of the curve because, RBI has been very, very careful and it's been actively observing what's happening. It's being making corrections. It's while it's allowing for innovation, it's also cutting down problems with the bad actors, right? So there was a time in between where uh, lending just uh, I mean, there are a bunch of these lending apps, right? I mean, causing all kinds of trouble with different people. The RBI stepped in. I mean, they had to put an end to this, and they did whatever was necessary. It's over. That menace is over. But again, I mean, the problem with these kind of bad actors in that ecosystem is that it kind of makes things difficult for the good actors as well, right? But the point was the RBI has been playing a very good balancing act. They have allowed for innovation, but at the same time, they've kept that oversight. The role of oversight happening very, very. Uh, I mean, they've taken that with a lot of seriousness and they're taking care of that bit. There is a concept called a regulatory sandbox that the RBI came up with, right? So basically, if you've got a new product, new service, try it in the sandbox, right? I mean, if you feel we need to regulate it, or if you feel it's part of some regulations already, we'll tell you. If not, I mean, go ahead, launch it. Very good idea. I mean, I don't think this is something that's done a lot in most jurisdictions, right? I mean, we've essentially given innovators a playground to come and uh, try out their products and services before they officially launch, and be sure that hey, the RBI is okay with it, so we can launch it. I mean, there's no problem with this. So you're saving on lawyer's fee, I would say. You don't really need to consult a lot of people and figure out, is this okay? No, I mean the RBI is giving you a heads up, thumbs up, and just go ahead with it.
Interesting, interesting. Now, who has been your role model or has been your influencer from the fintech or law world?
Oh, I mean, in terms of role models, I'd say, I mean, of course, I look up to lawyers because I mean, it's we are in the same profession, a lot to learn. The fintech space also, I follow a few people, but I probably touch upon the lawyers that I look up to. Right, first, I think one of my earlier seniors from the first place that I worked at, Ambud Sonal, he was a part of the conversation of a conversation with you as well. I saw that I mean, there was an interview with him as well. He's an absolutely great senior to have. He will handhold you, direct you to, in terms of what needs to be done. One of the biggest things that I learned from him was that 0-1 approach, right? I mean, when you're looking at a problem, try and figure out the, response in binaries, yes or no, right? If there's no response, then we'll go into the gray part of it. But one of the problems with some of the lawyers in the current time is that before going into the 0 and 1, we are straight away venturing into the gray aspects of the law and trying to keep it balanced between the two, right? That I mean, I think the time for that has passed. We need to give direct, straightforward responses in terms of yes or no. That's Ambuj. I need to call out a couple of other people because they'd not be happy if they get to know that I didn't take their names. One is my boss at Ola, because this is Ms. Ridhima Bhargav. She's currently the general counsel with Grow. So she, like I said, I mean, I didn't really have a lot of experience. She gave me that freedom and liberty that go explore. I mean, you go figure it out, and these are the set of problems that we have. It's now upon you. You figure out the response. You don't come to me with questions. You come to me with answers, and that kind of trust and confidence really helped. that experience helped. That I mean, forever grateful to Ridhima for that, and my current boss. And that is because I mean, my India PayU head, because and there's something that I want to learn from him. He's got this Zen approach, right? I mean, he's got Zen mode where he's absolutely cool and calm, irrespective of what happens, right? I mean, it's commendable. I mean, it's something that I want to learn from him. I don't think I have that kind of uh, you know calmness or composure when it comes to those kind of situations where things are all over the place. I mean, he's that's something that I want to learn from him. His name is Ashish Pathak. I didn't take his name. Yes.
Interesting. There will be many more which we will cover in our next episode. So keep it for next conversation.
Absolutely.
We are having a lovely conversation, by the way. So now, Vishy, how has technology helped you, and which legal tech tool has impacted your work?
Oh, we currently use Spotdraft, and see, I'm all for technology adoption. I mean, there's a lot of debate, questions about whether I mean, tech will make lawyers redundant, or AI will cause issues. I am not part of that conversation. I mean, I am fully into the fact that we must accept technology. It doesn't even scare me. I feel what it'll do is, I mean, the one area that it'll resolve for us is the tech ops part of it, right? The mundane, or the repetitive aspects of work, right? I mean, that is an area that will completely be transformed if we adapt and adopt to technology fast, right? I mean, if we are rigid, not open to that, we are making our lives difficult, because uh, it's just helping lawyers to focus more on the right things and not so much on the process side of things. If you're a practicing lawyers, I mean, there are two things, right? I mean, there's substantive law, there's procedural law. As an in-house counsel, we've got the actual I mean, how do I put this? I mean, there are legal queries, and then there are legal ops that you take care of. The legal ops, while they don't you know I mean, may not really be a part of your thinking process in terms of improvements and all of that, or in terms of challenges maybe, but they consume a lot of time, right? So the more you adopt technology, uh, the more you're making time for yourself. Yeah. The tool that we use is Spotdraft. It's been helping us well. It helps us with contract management, uh, and we are looking at exploring a few other tools as well.
Wow, that's interesting. So now, my last question for your professional journey: what advice would you give to young legal professionals aspiring to work in the domain of technology, law, and compliance?
Uh, Two things. I mean, kind of repetitive, but you can't be a complete lawyer in the in-house setup if you don't know the business, and you can't be a complete lawyer just by knowing the business either. I mean, both go hand in hand. You need to know the law that applies. You need to know the business very well, and it is only then that you will be able to give the right solution, right picture to your stakeholders. Uh, the application side of it is very, very important, right? I mean, and the application cannot happen unless you know the business. You cannot solve problems for business unless you know what is it that they want, right? You can tell them this is the law, and that happens a lot. I mean, you can tell them with the best of lawyers, the ultimate resolution or the ultimate solution that they provide is this is the law and this is what can be done, this is what can't be done. But that may or may not necessarily solve problem for business, because the business needs to know, okay, that is the law, but what do I do here? Right? So that ability to mix, or marry the two aspects together will really, really help a lot. I mean, you really have to know the business, whether it is transport, whether it is media, whether it is whichever that company is, whatever that is doing. Know your own company, know your competitors, know the business, and that will solve a lot of things.
Yeah, very true, very true. So now let's go to our next round, the personal round, and understand Vishy as a person. Uh, Vishy, tell us about your family and your formative years.
I come from a small family. I mean, it's a very small family. It's just me. I'm a single child. My mom and dad. I'm married now.
Your wife will kill you after
I
this.
mean, it just struck me. Oh no, I miss my wife, and yeah. So small nuclear family. I was born, brought up in small town, capital, but smaller town in comparison to the other cities. I was born, brought up in Patna. Did my schooling in Patna. I was in Patna till I finished class 12th. Great time in Patna. I'm basically a South Indian, but I was born, brought up in Patna. So that's about my childhood. Yeah.
So, uh, okay. So now, coming from Patna, now in Bangalore. So coming back to your roots, how does it feel?
Uh, I love Bangalore. you know, I think I'm actually not from Bangalore. I'm from Kerala. So I was born
Sorry.
in Patna and now I'm in Bangalore for the last 10, 11 years. Right. So, but again, I mean, there are two cities that I absolutely love. There is Bombay, there is Bangalore, and both are cosmopolitans that have, welcome people with open arms. I mean, no matter
Yes.
what the talk, what the discussion, these two cities are unmatched in terms of how welcoming they are to people from the outside. Yeah, and the opportunity that they provide in terms of growth. I mean, uh, moving to Bangalore not just helped me professionally, uh, personally also it shaped a lot of who I am today. Right? I mean, in terms of how I approach things, how I think about things, that's important. In fact, I'd say it goes back to college, right? I mean, I did my college from Bangalore, so it's very important. I mean, if you have the opportunity uh, to study in a different city, leave home in that period, that's one of the best things that can happen to you, right? I mean, you can the kind of exposure that happens, it's not about college education at that point of time. There are a lot of other things that you learn. I mean, you come with a limited budget, you start figuring out that this is the amount of money I have for this month. How do I figure this out, man? I have to, food, the regular things, and suddenly you're ready for life. I mean, you're juggling all those things. You're not really worried about university education alone. You figured all these things out on the sidelines, right? So it kind of makes you ready. So if you have, if you're thinking or trying to figure out between, being a day scholar versus uh, studying in a different city, I would say always pick studying in a different city. It teaches you a lot of things. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So any hobbies or creative pursuits you have developed from childhood, recently, anything you want to share?
Uh, Again, very honestly, I had a lot of hobbies, but I've become very, very, consumed into work. I mean, and that's not a good thing. I want to change that. Uh, you know, I really want to change that. I, I was a part of the football teams that were there in school and college. I was part of the dance teams. I used to play cricket a lot. All of these things that keep you occupied outside of your regular day-to-day work. I mean, I was pretty much doing everything, anything, and everything, and now everything stopped. Right? It's a little sad. I want to correct that. I definitely want to change that.
Okay. So now, Onam just went by. So, how did you spend Onam? So, for the viewers, I'd like to know about the food, everything that what do you say, Sadia? So, just
Yeah,
let
yeah.
me. I bought a book. I bought a book related to this festival.
No, absolutely. No, so in our society, what happens is, I mean, they organize. The place where I live at, right? I mean, they organize a small cultural event, a bunch of things. We have the sadhya for sure. I mean, that is a given, right? I mean, a sadhya, for the audience that doesn't know, I mean, it's essentially what is the exact word for it? Probably a meal. You could call it, but an elaborate meal. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a lot of things, a lot of dishes, a lot of and pure vegetarian cuisine that day, and made in typical Kerala style and served in a banana leaf. It's a different experience. It's a different taste. Some of you may like, some of you may not like it, but it's definitely worth the experience. I mean, you should definitely try it out. Uh, One of the most popular meals, from the country. So definitely try that out. Cultural things, yes. I mean, a lot of things happen. I mean, we have the Mahabali. It's called Chendamelam. The beating of the drums and the Mahabali appearing. So we our society organizes all of that. Good experience.
Wow. Okay. So how does a weekend look for you, Vishy?
uh, um, I mean, I look forward to meet friends. You know, I mean, talk about. I'll be very honest, right? I mean, with time, what's happened is I actually feel like I want to spend more time at home rather than stepping out and doing a lot of not at home work, right? I mean, I want to be at home as much as possible, and it's actually become one of my stress busters, right? Just talk about regular home stuff. I mean, do we have milk? Do we have vegetables in the house? Have we paid our bills? That kind of a conversation is like a stress buster for me because it takes me completely away from the discussions we have at work, right? I mean, some people may find that stressful as well, but for me, it's like it's way lesser complex than what's happening at work. So I, delve into that conversation and try and relax through that. Speaking to my wife, speaking to my family, it just calms me down. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. So now, are there any books or podcasts or anything you like that has inspired or influenced you?
I watch a lot of these two podcasts. One is the Nikhil Kamath podcast. I've started recently. I mean, they go on for pretty long. They're 2-3 hours long, but I make sure that I watch the entire episode. That is something that I've started to really, really enjoy, particularly the earlier episodes. I mean, I like the earlier episodes better. Um, then there is this other podcast, the internet said so, right? So that is a bunch of stand-up comedians just generally chatting about random things that they've read on the internet, and it's very casual and informative at times. I mean, it's not. It's just casual conversation, so it feels like you're a part of that conversation, listening to what people are saying about what they randomly read here and there. So that's a very interesting thing that I've followed for a while. Um, Books, not much of a reader. I mean, I read a lot of self-help books. So I wouldn't really say there's a favorite author or anything of that sort, but a lot of these self-help books. I was recently reading The Third Way by Rahul Mathan about, that's about privacy, and that again was a good book. Uh, I, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's hard to pick and choose. I don't read a lot of fiction, so I don't really have favorite authors. Whatever feels like the right self-help book, I mean, I read those.
Wow. Okay. So, regarding your bucket list, what would you like to do in 2024 with your wife, especially?
I don't think there's a lot of time left, right? Only one quarter more: October, November, December. There's September as well, yes.
Yes.
And I want to put things on autopilot as far as work goes, right? I mean, I've not really. I mean, at the start of my career, I could do this very well. I mean, I would just shut off work once I was at home. I completely forgot about work, and when I was at work, I'd completely forget about home. I used to do that very, very well initially. I fail miserably now. I mean, I'm thinking about work at home. I'm thinking about stuff from home at work. That is sort of a thing that's probably happened post pandemic. I don't know, because those lines have been blurred. But I really want to fix that. Go back to the norm where work stays in office, and homely discussions at home, and these don't cross the lines, right? I mean, I want to fix that. I want to go back to that autopilot mode where things are taken care of by themselves within their respective spaces. Yeah. And in terms of what I want to achieve, yes, like I said, I mean, I've not really focused a lot on my health lately. I've been very, very occupied with work. Not the best thing to do. Not again, advice to young lawyers. It's very important to focus on health as well. I mean, work is important, but I think once you miss the bus, I mean, once you are not, you know, consciously thinking about health, it could go in the wrong direction. I've put on a lot of weight, so maybe in the next 3 to 4 months, I plan to lose weight. I mean, that's something that I desperately want to do.
Wow. Okay, if someone wants to visit Bangalore, so according to you, which places or which food to have in Bangalore? Your recommendations.
Bangalore. You know, I mean, again, in terms of cuisine, you get pretty much everything in Bangalore, right? I mean, within Karnataka, more than Bangalore, I like Kurgi food. There's a region in Karnataka called Kurg. So I'm a big fan of Kurgi food. I mean, if you can get Kurgi food somewhere in Bangalore, I mean, I'd say go for it. It's not easily available elsewhere. So if you're in Karnataka, try Kurgi food.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, now my last googly question. Describe Vishy in one line.
Uh, Uh, I'd say I'd probably use one word. I'm pretty resilient, right? I mean, that's something that I'm very well aware of, about myself. I've had highs, I've had lows. I mean, I've had difficult times, I've had good times. I mean, I've just managed to keep things going, and I've never felt that this is it. I can't, you know, get up and fight again. I mean, it's really been. Um, I mean, I know that about myself. I can keep going. Yeah. So is one word that defines me, a resilient guy.
Oh, okay, so let's have some fun, the rapid fire. You're a morning person or night owl?
Morning person. Morning.
Okay. Okay. Your favorite holiday destination?
I love going to Kodaikanal. I mean, it's overnight from Bangalore. I absolutely love going to Kodaikanal.
Yes, so beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Your favorite cuisine?
In Karnataka, I like Kurgi food. I just said. Otherwise, I like Punjabi food. My wife's a Punjabi,
Hmm.
so yeah, that. And I mean, I'll be very honest. I am somebody who can eat, and probably one of the reasons why I put on so much weight, right? All cuisines.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Tea. I was a coffee person. I've recently transformed to tea, man.
Okay, let's visitors.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm saying this on this coffee show, but yeah, I've recently made the
It's
switch.
it's funny. Okay. I'm a mix, so I have to balance. Okay. Okay. Uh, your favorite color?
Blue, and I have no explanation for that. Just blue.
Mine also. Okay. Best piece of advice you have ever received?
Oh, best piece of advice that I've ever received. You know, probably. I mean, I tend to overthink a lot, and I've been told this a lot of times that the scenarios that you're building up in your head are probably not what the other person is thinking or even has time for, right? So that I've taken pretty seriously. That yeah, I don't need to beat myself up over something that is not even real, right? So I mean, give yourself time, and why put yourself under undue stress? Yeah, I mean, overthinkers tend to do that, put themselves in difficult spots. There's no need to. I mean, nobody really has the time for somebody else, right? That's the advice that I got. I was like, yeah, makes sense. Okay.
Wow. Okay. Your favorite song you can listen any time of the day.
Favorite what?
Song.
Favorite song? I've recently been listening to Big Dogs, this new song that has come out. It's by an Indian artist from Kerala that has just gone viral all over the world. So I've been listening to that lately. It's not one song. I mean, I just keep it's seasonal. I mean, every season I feel like something new. But I like the old Kishore Kumar songs. I mean, I any time of the year, any time of the day. I mean, I can listen to Kishore Kumar songs.
Wow. So, Vishy, you did well. So, you received this book.
Okay, perfect.
They deliver to your place, go through. So, friends, it was a lovely conversation on interesting topic. I can see Vishy is very passionate about fintech law in a global environment because he has an exposure working with different countries, with different cultures. And he is, what do you say, a Batman and Wibmo, that also line I would like add in my ending conversation. And he shared many tips of interpersonal, how you can manage with working with different people, with different countries, different mindsets. So this is the conversation you want to watch, understand, and yes, explain how working with different cultures. That is very important because in India also we're working with different cultures, with different people from different states. So this is the conversation. Do watch the episode when it's published on the Coffee Conversation Show. on YouTube channel. We have over 200 plus episodes with different subject experts. If you want to be a guest speaker, visit our website, the Emerging India Forum, or you can be on social media, and our team will connect with you. So we meet with another speaker, another topic over a cup of coffee. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Amir. Thank you. This was lovely.